This is a stress-free place. It's so beautiful, something one might simply sit and worship because it's just breathtaking. 4.5 miles from the northern edge of Dartmoor lies the Den Brook Valley. For 7 years, it's been the setting of a fierce battle over plans to build a wind farm. Farmer Martin Tucker's land would host 5 of the turbines, earning him a serious income if the project succeeds. If we get it as a result, he says, the wind farm is being planned by Renewable Energy Systems, RES. RES was originally set up as the renewables branch of the massive Sir Robert McAlpine Group, a company that has built everything from shopping centers to a nuclear power station. The Den Brook Wind Farm is the dream project of manager Rachel Ruffle. I'm going to make it work, and I don't want people to be against it. I want everyone to love wind farms. If it's built, Rachel's wind farm would stand just over a kilometer from the home of Mike and Bash Hume, who moved to this quiet region 35 years ago to lead a green, low-impact lifestyle. They say, of course there's climate change. Here we are in mid-April and this could be midsummer. But they worry about noise from turbines. Anybody who says they can't hear that must be hard of hearing. Early on, in 2005, Mike and Bash cooperated with Rachel and allowed RES to record background noise on their land. They agreed to let me see the data, Mike says, yet now I feel they've just fobbed me off. When the local council refused planning permission, the issue went to a public inquiry. Still, Mike didn't have the noise data. After that inquiry, RES won permission, but Mike took the fight to the High Court, where he lost. The judge, however, criticized RES for failing to release the data. Mike isn't about to quit. As he sees it, if they'd let me have that data, it would have been a whole different story. And so Den Brook's saga and the nation's dilemma over responding to climate change has a long way to run. 6 weeks after Mike's court defeat, Rachel and a colleague arrive at Mike and Bash's place to hand over the long-withheld data. The mood is tense as neighbor Claire, another campaigner, joins for moral support. We're waiting like they're royalty, Mike jokes, when at last Rachel pulls up. Rachel hands Mike papers and a memory stick of data. Here's everything you asked for. I truly believe the noise condition will protect you, she insists. But Mike's anxious. I've experienced amplitude modulation. When wind speeds at the top of the blades differ from those at the bottom, that can produce irritating noise. All I want is a planning condition that punishes noise above a certain threshold. Rachel refuses. We don't see any need to threaten our permission with extra conditions. We're not going to cause noise problems, obviously. It's not in our interest. Mike shakes his head. I've been told that so many times, but it's not enough, Rachel. After they leave, Mike emails the files to 2 noise experts. Soon they uncover anomalies. It looks like the background noise measurements are inflated relative to the wind speed, raising the allowed noise limits. If we'd had this at the inquiry, the outcome might have changed. In the next few days, he frantically prepares a new witness statement. Maybe it's just a mistake, but it's serious. The data's flawed. Soon, Mike's legal team submits his new claims, and to his amazement, Lord Justice Laws grants permission for appeal, criticizing the delay in releasing data. Now both the noise issue and the balancing argument, whether benefits outweigh harm, are back on the table. Mike calls a meeting of his Den Brook Judicial Review Group. They face a fresh fundraising hurdle. But with only a month's notice before the new hearing, they scramble. Meanwhile, RES contends any data errors are negligible. Mike's group begs to differ. The press picks it up. Is it just incompetent to make such an elementary error? On the other side, Rachel wonders when this will end. Within weeks, the Secretary of State, the main defendant who'd appointed the original inspector, makes a surprise settlement offer. They concede on noise alone. If Mike signs, they'll pay his costs. If not, he risks everything in court. Some in our group say fight on for the balancing argument. Mike sighs. But others warn, if we lose all. Ultimately, they accept the noise settlement. The High Court quashes the planning permission. It's back to the planning inspectorate, PINS, to decide how to proceed. Rachel remarks bitterly, it's so frustrating. This is about tackling climate change. Instead, we're stuck in more arguments. Pins initially suggests a limited re-inquiry on noise alone with the original inspector. Mike's group protests, "No, we want a fresh start on all issues." After more legal threats, Pins yields. A full new inquiry with a new inspector is announced for March 2009. "I just want to get it built," Rachel murmurs. "It could be generating by now. We thought we'd won. Now we're right back in it. One silly mistake, and they dragged the whole thing up again." But there's another factor. A second wind farm inquiry in Lincolnshire that might set a precedent. Mike keeps tabs. In that case, the inspector rejects a proposal citing high wind shear and uncertain noise impact. Mike's delighted. At last, an inspector acknowledges these tricky conditions. He sets up his own 10-meter mast and logs local wind shear. Rachel has insisted Den Brook is within guidelines, but Mike retorts, "Let's see real data." By autumn, the new inquiry begins in a sports hall, 2 years and 8 months after the first. This time, there's a legally binding UK target to get 15% of energy from renewable sources by 2020, a point hammered home by RES. But others argue CO2 savings from 9 turbines are overestimated. On day 1, rumors swirl that 4 days aren't enough to cover everything, especially noise. Mike sighs. "We might not even get to noise. It's nuts." Sure enough, the main parties agree to postpone noise to a second session months later. "Incredible," Rachel mutters. "Green energy is urgent, and we're stuck in endless process." Still, the inquiry plows through all other topics. Landscape experts spar over impacts. Some say turbines overshadow Dartmoor's wild beauty. Others call them modest in the grand scheme. Residents voice anguish or support. Most public speakers oppose, though a few stand up for green power. Finally, the inspector schedules noise for a separate 4-day session. It's clear that the official guidelines, ETSU R97, designed for older, smaller turbines, may struggle with these bigger modern machines. Months later, the second session opens. Jane Davis testifies about wind farm noise that allegedly forced her family to abandon their Lincolnshire home on certain nights. She describes amplitude modulation, AM, that can be incessant. On cross-examination, the developer's barrister notes no proven statutory nuisance. Jane insists local authorities haven't enforced conditions. Next, Dr. Lee Maroney-Hoare, another key witness for Mike, presents her findings that excessive AM is more common than the government's Salford report claims. She says 16% of wind farms may have had AM-related noise complaints. The developer's legal team protests the data, but the inspector listens. As for Mike, he's poured time and money into this. He submits proposals for an extra AM condition. The developer says, "No. If we adopt that condition, it could set a devastating precedent for the UK wind industry. Plus, official advice says it's rare." In the end, the noise session wraps. Everyone awaits the inspector's verdict. Finally, the inspector announces his decision. Once again, Den Brook is approved. Martin Tucker is relieved. Rachel is thrilled, yet cautious. At last, we can build it, unless someone appeals again. Indeed, the new permission includes a unique AM condition. Mike is devastated. In a detailed 55-page letter, the inspector says the turbines would produce some beneficial CO2 savings. He acknowledges a limited but real landscape impact, especially near Dartmoor, but finds it outweighed by national renewable energy needs. Regarding noise, he expresses frustration with outdated guidelines. He does impose an AM condition, but stops short of specifying how operators must fix an AM issue if it arises. Mike sees a major flaw. It's toothless. It just demands measuring, not ceasing the nuisance. So he appeals again, claiming the condition fails to protect local residents. Rachel braces for another legal battle. 6 years of wrangling, and Den Brook still isn't built. Farmer Tucker remarks, "We're stuck. At best, it's more waiting. At worst, we go back to court." Rachel sighs. "I truly want everyone to love wind farms, but right now some folks just say no, no, no."